From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Hello, my name is Larry Appelbaum from the Music Division here at the Library of Congress. Anyone who has been listening or paying attention to jazz in the last 50 years will know our guest today. He's a composer and bassist who has worked with just about anybody you can think of. He appears on more than 2,000 recordings. He's taught for at least 20 years at the City College of New York. He's also the author of 5 books, and it is my great pleasure to welcome Ron Carter to the Library of Congress.
Larry, thank you for the invitation, and good evening.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
I want to start sort of at the beginning, or even the pre-beginning. I'm curious about your parents, and why don't you tell me a little bit about each, and specifically, what qualities did you get from each of your parents?
We should probably go backwards, I think.
Okay.
I think one of the qualities I got from them was that we, our kids, my sisters and brother, are as good as anyone else. And don't let them tell you differently. My father worked for the bus company in Detroit, the DSR, and he drove for them for 25 years. My mother was a housewife. We had have 6 sisters and a brother, so 8 of us kids. And she earned extra money for by doing laundry for the neighbors and for people who needed that kind of stuff done. Ultimately, their inspiration for us to do things other than drive a bus for our life and take in the laundry. I have 6 sisters, 4 who are living. They all have at least a bachelor's in some topic, nursing. One was a lawyer. 3 or 4, 2 school teachers. My brother went away to the service early, so he retired from the Army and retired from the police force and got an associate degree from the local college in Los Angeles while he was alive, and I'm wherever I am. So one of the things they clearly instilled in us was a need to not just think outside the box, but make our own box. And we could do that best by going to school and get a better education.
Did they nurture your creativity?
I'm not sure if nurture is a right word. They certainly encouraged me to practice and make every lesson worth the money they were investing in me. You have a family of 10, and we're talking about in the 40s when work was hard to come by, and this is 20 years before Rosa Parks' bus situation, so we were seeing some difficult times. My father was seeing difficult times, but he managed to make sure that we had hot water, we had clean clothes, we had soap to wash with, and plenty of food to eat.
Did they both live long enough to see your success?
Yeah, my mom actually died 2 years ago at 99 and a half.
Wow.
And my father lived till like 87 or 88, so they had a chance to come to some concerts and see me wearing a tuxedo a couple of times.
I'm sure they were proud.
Had a great time. Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though you're best known as a bass player, your first instrument is the cello.
Yes.
What drew you to the sound of the cello?
Well, when you're 10 years old, anything sounds different than take them out than play ball or those kinds of things, the sounds of the ballpark and just sounds in general. It seemed to me way back then, to about 70, 65 years or so ago, it just seemed like a nice quiet sound to me. And of all the sounds that were most easily produced from, that were the trumpet and there's the trombone and the clarinet, the cello seemed to produce the most satisfactory, the most acceptable sound as an amateur right away. So I said, let me try this.
Okay, so when you're first introduced to the cello repertoire, what pieces spoke to you?
The Klingel scales, the Popper early cello solos, and of course the Bach cello suites were part of my library up until I got to my third year in college, third year in high school, 1954, I guess. I played that library in 55, 54, yeah.
You mentioned high school. You attended Cass Tech.
Yes.
This is in Detroit, and was it strictly a high school for music and arts, or did it cover all curriculum?
Well, I think in today's educational system, it'd be like a junior college for high school kids. I mean, there was automotive, there was design, there was architecture, there was, of course, music, there was math, there were song classes. I mean, there was a complete college curriculum for high schoolers who had to take auditions to be accepted into high school. It started at the 10th, 11th, and 12th grades.
How did you audition? What did you play for them to get in?
Man, I can't remember. You're going back, taking the dust off of the cobwebs here. But I was playing bass at the time, so I'm sure I had to play a bass concerto or something and have good grades from my other high school transfer credits and grades to Cass Tech.
Are there teachers at Cass that you remember that taught you the most?
Probably the band director who passed away last year, Harry Beejan. This music program had a marching band, had a concert band, had two orchestras, and two choirs.
Wow,
This is
for high
high school.
Incredible.
And Mr. Beejan was the band director for the marching band and the band director for the concert band. In the marching band I played tenor, and in the concert band I played E-flat alto. And to see him conduct rehearsals and make them productive, to make them have another air of importance about them. Given all we were doing there, there's a great athletic department at the time. We were all studying solfege, we were studying a little piano. I mean, we had a full college load as 16, 17-year-olds. And he was able to, given all this activity we had going outside of the concert band, make the concert band sparkle each time we played a note. That just kind of caught my attention right away.
Throughout your career, you've worked with a lot of heavy leaders, and in fact, you're one yourself. What do you think makes a good leader?
I think his ability to look at the situation, step outside of it, and find some solutions right away.
Can you give me an example?
Coming to the nightclub and find out that there's no drums and the piano's inadequate. Well, you know, you've signed the contract, you probably got the deposit, and the only way to find a solution that's going to be acceptable to most people, because everyone's not going to be happy with it, is to step back and say, okay, this is what we got to do. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and you have 2 hours to get it done, and we'll be back in time to start the show.
Speaking of solving problems, which is one of the great challenges, what do you do when you find yourself working with a band or in a rhythm section that's not really feeling it together? How do you get that on track?
Well, I haven't been there in a long time, so you got to go back a long way,
Could you
because
work
I've
with
been
your
one of
own?
those guys. I think, you know, most rhythm section players are interested in playing together. And they kind of, occasionally they will let their enthusiasm get in the way of the logic of the music. And, but they're conversant. They all have good language skills. You know, they want to talk about A, talk about this, talk about C, talk about this. And I'm pretty good at analyzing those issues. And I don't mind, as I have done, taking the piano player or the drummer, whoever I think needs the most immediate help right then to make this thing work, take them aside and say, look, if you do these things now, this project can take shape. But as long as you don't do them, we'll be here for a long day. And let's not do that. And I bring enough of a reputation to these situations and enough high enough credibility number that they kind of trust my judgment and whether they believe it's going to work. Because I'm the only bass player in the band, they got to take my word for it for as long as the situation lasts. And it works out okay.
When you're working with your own group and you bring a new piece of music, talk a little bit about the process. What do you actually need to explain? Or is it all intuitive? Do people sort of grasp your intention right away?
Well, I think intuitiveness is kind of overrated, I think.
Really?
You know, I think everyone needs to have something explained to them, no matter what their level is in this particular topic.
So how would you do that? How would you explain?
I would tell them, I brought in a tune that we had rehearsal 4 months ago. And I have a song, I had written out a song for the quartet that's going on tour this month. And I explained to them that this piece was assembled in bits and pieces. I had written a piece here and it didn't work by itself, so I put it aside, and I had written a piece here and they didn't work very well, so I had these 4 pieces on my bulletin board that didn't do anything by themselves. But I felt because I wrote them, there was some merit to them. I wasn't going to just put them in the trash can and let it. So I sat down one night and took some scissors and some tape. You know the expression cut and paste from the old days? That's what I did. I took these 4 pieces and I assembled them in such a fashion that they made better sense in this order than the order I had written them originally, the pieces. So when I explained this to the band, they understood that this is like a quilt. And it's their job not to let the seams show. Here we go.
Is there a correct way to always play your music, or do you allow your musicians to?
I trust their interpretation. I mean, everyone has their own words, and I'm just interested, and we all have the same words. I'm as interested to see them making their own sentences out of my set of words as they're interested in seeing if their set of words match my intent of the music. So they're completely free to play it as they wish. One of the things I hope happens with my songs is that they can be successful without me being there to tell the guy or the lady what I want out of this piece. And if the piece can stand by itself, if I can email the guy a piece of paper and say, this is the tune you asked for, but I can't make the set, I'm out of town. But here's the music you wanted. Just kind of look at it and play with them what you think. And I have to trust that there's enough content and enough interest in my particular song that I'm setting to this person that they'll be able to find a way to rearrange my letters, my words, to make their own sentences and have the story they want to hear with this kind of background.
You mentioned the example of sort of cut and paste on one of your compositions. Do they ever come to you fully realized?
Yeah. It seems I'm not so much like that anymore. You know, I'm kind of busy, so I kind of make these notes when I can, and I don't have that kind of substantive, complete 3 hours to compose. I don't have that time anymore. I'm either traveling, or changing light bulbs in my apartment, or talking to my grandkids. So I don't have that kind of pure time. And maybe I shouldn't have it, because I got other things I want to get involved with. So when I do have a moment, I have a little note that I make on my bulletin board and stick it on the bulletin board or put it on my music stand, and I still kind of do bits and pieces. But occasionally I'll have enough of a valid idea, a musical thing that I can kind of hear it in its full melodic form at one time. Then I just sit down with the bass and write it out, and I won't get to it for another week, but it's a complete paragraph, it's a complete chapter, a complete song of 32 bars, 16 bars, whatever form this song happens to stop at. And I'm comfortable, that's my impression at that time, I felt this. And I'm comfortable, take a chance, hope that it works.
As a composer, do you revise your work?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are very few composers who are really satisfied with their first attempt. It seems to me those first attempts just open doors to other possibilities.
So how do you know when you're done?
And I go like this. I had enough.
Huh. Really? Okay. How much of your life is composed versus improvised?
A great deal. Traffic lights, speed limits, the cost of gasoline, the cost of food, wanting to look nice for this event. All that has a cost. And all those costs are basically out of my control. What I can control is how far I drive. I can control what I wear. I can control how much of the correct diet I want to have. So it's about 60-40.
60-40.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that change over time? Were you always this way?
I've always been aware of rules. I think I've always been aware of what it would take to make these rules not apply to me and have them successful. Like composition, you learn certain rules in composition.
Mm-hmm.
You find out what the rules were for Bach, what the rules for Debussy, what the rules were for what the rules were for Benny Golson, what the rules were for Horace Silver. And once you understand that these were rules, they worked, their framework, but they had these rules. Your compositions need not abide by their rules, but they certainly understand a process that they used that you can manipulate to your own fashion. Now, I have a book called Building a Jazz Bass Line, and I've been teaching out this method for a very long time. And this process shows the bassist, the student bassist, in my case, all these choices that they have with the rules involved. And explain to them, once you understand what rules are in place, the seventh resolves this way, this note's analyzed as a passing tone or a lower neighbor or a partitura. Once you understand what those rules are, you're more than welcome to change these rules to meet the needs of your music. But unless you understand what the rules are, your music, as far as I can view what I've heard, doesn't have a long shelf life. Once we get out of this room, and it's finished. That can't be.
So for a young musician, how do they know where the balance is between freedom and the discipline that you're talking about?
Trial and error, what kind of bands or groups they involved with, what the level of these groups are, what the leadership of these groups are, what the musical aim of these groups are. Is he really intent on this fancy of his music, or does this music appeal to him more? Is he studying how his instrument works? Is he really want to be a musician, or he wants to be a hobbyist who plays on weekends? Is he willing to accept criticism that's not okay for him? Is he willing to play with bands that aren't his favorite kind of music to find out, can he help this music go somewhere else? Or is he going to limit his scope to what he wants to play only? I mean, all these factors determine what he ends up by doing in the long run.
Are you a self-critical person?
Yes,
As a musician, but also in your life?
absolutely.
And so when you go back and listen to some of your recorded output,
I cringe.
you cringe. Really?
Absolutely, yeah.
Even recent things.
I hear all the choices I could have made, and I wonder how come I didn't see this choice at that time, or how could I have missed this opening to make this saxophone player not play for 3 measures. The bass has that power, I find, and I've seen, and as listening to the records I've made, chances to make the saxophone player not play for a whole bar. If I can make a guy do that, Larry, I'm okay. I just want to control his thought process. And I've listened to some records I've made, and I've missed some opportunities that said, boy, if I could go back in time and have one more chance at this sucker, I'd be happy as I could be. I would take it in a heartbeat.
It's so ironic because we listen to your work and marvel at the choices that you make.
But you also
And you hear something different.
But you're also enjoying what I don't get. You're enjoying, one, I hope, the best of my efforts. You're enjoying the fruits of 50 years of practicing. You're enjoying the results of being in this specific environment that I'm in. And if you could understand in here what I'm really aiming for, you'd appreciate how close I came to that goal. But you wouldn't hear what I missed, because I wouldn't allow that. Only I'm going to know that.
Creative people never stop learning.
I don't think so.
So what is it you're still working on?
Larry, I'm still trying to look for ways to get the attention of my fellow musicians when I'm playing with them. You know, the bass is still thought of as the guy who's behind the palm trees, you know, the guy with the biggest music stand. You know, I'm trying to have people I work with, despite the reputation I bring to their situation, that, yeah, I did this stuff here, man, but I'm here, right now. If you just give me your attention, you hear some other choices I'm making for you. So I'm constantly looking for ways to comfortably grab them by the throat and just shake them for 4 or 5 bars till I got their attention.
How often does it happen?
Do I have to shake them by the throat? It depends how tall they are, man.
Did anyone shake you by the throat?
Emotionally, several times.
Talk about that.
Well, when I was 10 years old, our science teacher told the class that, and this is we call this is a synopsis of his words. He said, okay, now you color kids, don't worry about learning Latin, you're just going to dig ditches. And I said, man, what is this guy talking about? You know, and I can't speak Latin today. And I learned on my own to read just the things, you know, roots of certain words as a process of reading and analyzing stuff. But I couldn't believe this guy's telling me that, telling the class. And I told my parents, man, we had 2 floors. They ended up on the 4th floor of our house, man. They went to 2 roofs that we didn't even have. They were so upset. So that, you know.
And yet you learned from that.
Yeah, I know that's what he thinks. I got another plan. I got my own ball game. And I got my own fans right here. Geneva, Judy, Wilma, Sandy, Pat, Dale, and Carter. Mom and Dad. I got a team. I'm okay with that.
You had your own plan by the age of 10?
I knew that wasn't going. I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew that I wasn't going to buy his plan for me.
When did you know that music would be your life?
Probably when I got into high school, which is like, and then it was like the 9th grade, 8th grade, and they had these music festivals, contests where each school district was represented by a certain number of players, certain instrumentalists, and they would play for a jury, and they would say, give you a little medal for whatever you thought, whatever rank they thought you had, whether first place or second place, you know. And I kept bringing these things home. At 11 or 12 years old, I said, man, not a bad idea, you know. And you know, my parents were proud. My sisters, oh, look at that, he got another one. Yeah, I got another one, and I put it in the drawer, man. There's something other than that available. You know? But that's probably my first real realization that this is something I could, I guess the word is maybe be a success at rather than succeed in the general terms. You know?
Do you still have those medals?
Yeah.
Do you save everything?
I did. Right now I got them saved in here. But what I've always done, Larry, is try to save my recordings, the sessions I'm on. And I've always felt that if I don't make a conscious effort to save these documents of my presence, no one else will. And when my grandsons ask my wife or their mother, what did grandfather do? I want her to say, well, if you go to the Library of Congress, if you go to here, you'll find his record of 2,000 discs that he made. And I want them to know that their grandfather had a history. You know, and unless I'm the one who initiates this process and begins to have a location where they can physically go to open this cupboard and see a magazine from Strad magazine or a magazine from the National Society of Bassists or an award for a Grammy. Unless they see these things available to them, they think their grandfather was just grandfather. And that should be more important to them than just grandfather. And as an African American, that they're going to study at some point. They have a music 101 class.
To be a grandfather is a great thing.
Yeah, 4 times.
Yes. But you've had a significant impact on the language of the music of this country, not just in the role of the bass, but for everything you've done. Is recognition important to you?
Depends on what day of the week it is. I mean, if I had a really great night on the bandstand, I mean, if the things I tried to do on the bandstand worked in the context of that band, and I was able to communicate to them what I wanted to do without shaking my finger or hollering out, if I can get that kind of communication level with them, I don't need somebody else to tell me I played good, because they know it, and the music knows it. And on those nights when I've kind of fallen, as I feel, short of making that happen, you know, I won't say I need my ego boosted, I need to sit down and collect my thoughts and say, gee, you can't have another night like this, man. That's not going to work. There's a standard you have set, a standard that they expect, and you got to deliver. At those times, it would be easy enough to go to my closet and take all the proof of things I did. Well, that's not what I can do, because I did that. I'm trying to get to another kind of icing for that same kind of cake, you know.
What does that other icing look like?
To play by myself for 25 minutes and have everyone stunned at what happens. That's the other icing.
I'm sure you've had the experience where you play and people are stunned and it didn't move you as much, and maybe vice versa. How do we always know? Do we always know how well we do?
Well, we never really know how well we do as far as they're concerned. And if we're able to step back long enough, quickly enough from our performance, we have another kind of view of what happened during that event, during that 10-minute event. I think sometimes our view of our performance is so wrapped in, it could have been better, that occasionally we miss the fact that it was a good performance and you enjoyed it. I'm trying to get to that space more in my head.
And how often does it happen?
Well, I hope that if you ask me tomorrow the same question, I can say it happened last night.
We all hope. Yeah. Do you think that music or art is a luxury or a necessity?
Necessity. Absolutely.
Why?
The arts, music. There have been enough scientific tests to prove that kids who have music programs or arts programs in their schools are much better citizens, they're much more productive, they're much more available for exchanging views and not necessarily so confrontative in a warlike nature. I think just those 4 events itself would make music valuable and valid if that was all there was to it. But you have all these people who have the same words, the same notes, but they find ways to make these same notes have different sounds. You know, Bach chorale doesn't sound anything like a Webern opera, which sounds nothing like Miles Davis' So What, which sounds nothing like a Kenny Barron composition, Sun Shower. But we've got the same words. And because we have these same words, it allows us to move our emotions in a direction that only this person can do. I think it's this special event, this selectivity in this person that makes the arts for this person really a special event in his life. And this special event in his life, if he has the wherewithal, he can spread this event not just here, but he can spread it to here and affect these people and have them hear his set of words. And he can go here and have these people hear his set of words. And I think that because the arts are so personal and so impersonal then that they can be a complete stranger, man. If he's a great piano player, you don't care about his name. Can you play that some more of that? If he's really great, so, wow, man, I don't know who you are, man, but I want to know more of you. I know your name. Yeah, I know who you are. It's just this combination of things that makes the arts so vital to not only to the success of my music, jazz, but to the arts in general. You know?
So you make the compelling case, and I wonder why you think art or music is not a great priority in our culture.
Well, I think, and I'm going to make me sound extreme right now, but I think we, people, have been geared to have a very short attention span. They've been geared to recognize success like this, without what goes in to make this success possible. And they're not trained and not geared to expect the results after what we call the long haul. And in this case, the long haul is practicing 3 hours a day, is practicing taking music lessons, is doing gigs may not be the best for you musically, but you can learn physically on these gigs. You may be taking courses you don't like in harmony and theory, but they're valuable to your goal over here. It may mean having to wear tuxedos, which you don't want to do every night. I mean, these facts are what makes it from here to here. And people are not geared to accept this route. They want to get on this thing that's shaped with pictures on it called television, and that's their model of how they can work their way through life. And I think, unfortunately, that's never the case, man. You know, the odds say that these people are going to end up on a major TV show like the person is right there. That's not a chance for most people. And because they don't have a view of the arts, other than this box with the picture on it, it's called television. Huh. That's their model. And I mean, they don't have a chance to get past this box. You know, but if they have music in school with their classmates, with teachers who teach music well, who can give them the love of the arts, let them know that even if you don't play good, you're still playing something. You understand what this means, 4 beats in the bar. You understand in tune, out of tune. You understand a good note, a bad note. Even if you can't play those things night in and night out like somebody else can. Maybe you can't play at all after you graduate, but you can go to the music store. You can write music. You can catalog music. You can appreciate it certainly at an opera or at a jazz club. And because they don't see these options, because they aren't encouraged to think that there are things other than what they're allowed to see and force-fed, the arts having a hard time. Clearly, it's not the money-making event that the college football is, or college basketball. But I think if the music had that kind of exposure, that kind of determination behind it, it'd sell more than that. It would make colleges need to have football being the lost child of their curriculum rather than the arts programs. It blows me away, man. The major colleges, departments, music departments have cookie sales, man. To
raise money.
Yeah, I can't believe that. The football team is bringing in millions of dollars a year from TV and the games, and the music department, they're like, the music stands don't work. They're trying to get the instruments fixed out of borrowed money. They're having cookie sales to buy tickets. I just can't believe that that's what we're looking at, but we are.
I'll bet the math program does the same thing.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about
priorities.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I can add already. I'm trying to find B flat. So I can't be worried about those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. When you're writing, do you write with specific players in mind?
Yes.
Do you write to their abilities?
Yes. I think I have a good idea of what they sound like. Have a good idea what their favorite register is.
Can you give us some examples about that?
I wrote a song for Joe Henderson called Opus 1.5. Because Joe's a very rhythmic, melodic player. And by that I mean he plays melodies that jump around like this, not just a whole note like this, you know. And I've done several dates with Joe, and he never had enough music to finish the session. I mean, he's always 10 minutes short of music.
Really? Why?
Yeah, that's the part he got. I don't know. I was just glad he had 10 minutes they needed to fill up with me. So he said, okay, Ron, he touched his glasses. I need a tune. Okay. I said, okay. So I wrote a song for Joe Henderson, and it's called Opus 1.5. I did a record with Chick Corea and Tony Williams, and this particular date, Chick Corea reminded me of Thelonious Monk, the way he comped sometimes. So I wrote a song for Chick called GJT. It's kind of a West Indian kind of song, but it has some nice Monk kind of chords, you know. So I'm able to kind of, in my own head, analyze what I think this person's strong points are. But try to be careful not to ignore his weak points, because that makes the strong points even better.
What are your strong points? What are your weak points?
Just ask historians. Man.
Well, yeah, surely you know.
Yeah, you have to tell me.
Okay.
Over lunch.
Yeah, okay, sure. Do you ever get tired of people asking questions about Miles Davis? I mean, that was a 5-year period that
I used to
really,
get tired. I used to get tired, yeah. But, you know, Tony's passed away, and Herbie and Wayne are in California, and I'm in New York, and there's a lot of always press in New York about Miles' anniversary and his birthday and stuff like that. So you just got to reach as far as talking about that 5-year period of time. When they had the post office had a Miles Davis stamp.
Yeah, I have some.
The first event was held in New York. Well, I was in that band, so of course I was one of the guys asked to participate in the ceremony, you know. So those events and those things happen enough times that the press, are still interested in what he was like, and they need somebody who was there during those period of time to answer. So I've kind of accepted that, yeah, that's what I did, but I tried to slide in there at some point, but I was working before I met him. And they had this big old quiet space in it that they don't know what to fill up with. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy working with guys before Miles as well, Randy Weston, Art Farmer, you know, Betty Carter, Carmen McRae. I love playing with those people, man. I had a great time with them, you know. And that Miles Davis 5-year span was another chapter in my musical growth, you know.
I only want to ask one question about that.
Oh, here it goes.
There it
Set
is.
it up, okay.
Here it is.
Okay.
Some of your tunes you recorded with him list him as a co-composer. Who did what?
Well, you know, we would all bring in our songs, and he would work through them with us. I mean, some songs were more ready than others, you know, and we were all really just getting involved in writing and composing for a specific sound in the band. And I think none of us had ever been put in that slot before. Maybe Wayne had, working with Art Blakey's band. But I think none of us had really been put in a position to write songs with a certain sound, specific sound in mind. And when we get to these record dates, we'd all bring our own music. And the first thing we'd do was pass out the parts, and we would see if they were correct, because we were all done by hand, and manuscript was poor, the lines were always in the wrong place, and were they physically readable. And then we would play through them, and Miles would say, well, maybe we should move this bar over here, or maybe this is not the best chord or the best voicing for this part of the melody right here. Or let's just do this. We won't play the bridge, we'll just play the melody, and we won't play the bridge until we finish the song. Whatever his views of making this composition that was not his initially, not only a part of the band, but a part of his compositional skills. Teachers all do that, composition teachers. The difference is that it's not recorded with them claiming credit. And I'm okay. I'm not been out of shape because he shares a credit on one of my songs. Yeah, he did some work, okay. Well, I went to school and I paid a guy whatever credits cost back in those days to show me how to fix my composition for me. He didn't play trumpet either. Well, this guy plays trumpet, so I'm okay, you know.
I know when you were working in studios, especially on jingle dates, and the composer or the arranger would ask you to sort of create something on the spot.
Well, you know, I didn't understand at that point that the ramifications of doing that was extra money for me.
Yeah.
You know, when jazz players do it, they just do it because they do it. They're not necessarily focusing on how much I'm going to get paid for doing this. You know, and I don't regret not getting paid for those events. For me, it's fun. I was playing with guys I liked, Grady Tate most of the time. You know, Pat Rivolo, a good piano player. I mean, guys who I don't see only in those events. You know, so maybe it was as much of a greeting as it was a 1-hour session. So while I don't regret not getting paid for those things I contributed to those jingles, and I began to understand how they worked financially, and how those guys were very eager to continue taking advantage of us, which I allowed because I didn't know anything better. Well, I've kind of learned since then.
Speaking of getting paid, did you always get your royalties?
Yeah, but we're talking about something different now. You're talking about making the song special because you were there, and because you have added something that the composer didn't have to the jingle, that the producer and the company guy in the control room likes. He likes that. So keep that in. Well, the composer's getting credit for that, but he didn't do that. I did that. You know? So again, he gets paid, he gets the credit, and I just have some nice friends. For the moment, that was okay. Until I understood that those people, I won't say they were dishonest, but they were less willing to share that part of the royalties with someone in the musician's room who, in fact, made the composition something that it wasn't intended to be. Okay, I learned that lesson.
we're talking now about sort of the intersection of music and the business of music.
Yes, absolutely.
And how do you reconcile this world of art and the world of business?
Well, I think I began to, years ago, try to quantize my talent.
What does that mean?
How much am I worth?
How do you
Well, Carmen McRae told me years ago, figure out what you need to make in New York and double it when you go on the road. I said, hey, not a bad idea.
Good
So I
lesson.
sat and figured out how much it cost me if I stayed in New York, the rent, the Con Ed, stuff. And the band wanted me to go on the road. I said, okay, this is what it cost me to go on, this is what it's going to cost you to hire me. Oh, man, the last band. Hey, brother, ask the last band then. I can't do this. What that leads to, though, man, is you get a reputation of being arrogant and a wise ass. But that also leads to those guys not calling back. I'm okay with that, too.
How much is it worth to you to have to deal with airlines and your instrument?
Well, I've been through it like other bass players have. Right now, the bass players call it bass du jour, because we never know where we're going to get when we get to the gig.
Oh, you don't travel with your own instrument?
Only when I'm driving to a place like this, Washington or Boston
I see.
or Baltimore. I haven't traveled with my own fiddle on the tour from outside New York, man, in at least 6 years. They've made it so difficult, so much more difficult to try to fly with your own instrument. You know, they charge you overweight, they charge you excess baggage, and they charge you oversize. Now I've flown from, 8 years ago, I flew from Paris to Tel Aviv, and Air France, and it cost $1,050 just for the bass. And they got there a day late, and they were unwilling to talk to me, to offer me any kind of remuneration or any kind of apology. And of course I had to go back from Tel Aviv back to Paris. It still cost $1,050. You know, and bass players, producers, the concerts, the budget just can't afford that kind of travel expense.
Right.
So right now I'm comfortable to hopefully that the promoter has a bass that's reasonable, and my job is to make it not sound like it's a stranger to me.
You don't bring your strings with you, do you?
No, I don't want to do that. I don't have the, for me to do that.
Yeah.
For me to alter a guy's bass physically for one night, for me it's selfish.
Yeah.
Suppose he didn't want my strings on his bass. It means I got to get there a day early, and I can't do that. But take off his strings, put mine on, then after the concert, take mine off and put his back on. Now, there's so many things wrong with that concept that I don't even deal with that. You know? All I'm worried about, does the bass go high enough because I stand up to play the bass? Does it go high enough to stand up? Are the 4 strings reasonably new? And what kind of pickup does he have? But I'm not going to go there and do it as some bass players are reported to do. They go to the guys to the gig a day early and change the strings and move the sample. You know, that's way above my pay grade. I would not dare to ask a guy like me to do that to his fiddle.
If you're working with the bass du jour, can you always play it with your sound?
I've been told I do it every night, and I was amazed to hear that from people in the band. They said, man, how do you do that? And I'm saying, what? He said, well, you had different bass tonight, and you had different bass last night, and you had different bass on Monday. And they all sound like yours in New York.
So where does the sound of Ron Carter's bass playing really come from? Is it your hands?
I've been asking people who are much older and much more into the business of bassists physically than I am, and they tell me that that's possible because 2 reasons. One, because you hear a sound that you want to be responsible for. You hear a sound that you want to be able to imitate or repeat or emulate whenever you pick up a bass. Whether it's yours or not, you don't care about that. You just want to get the sound you hear out of this 3 foot by 4 foot by 6 inch box with a stick inside. And what makes that happen is your hands. And I don't understand this part either. But my friends who are into the scientific mode much more than I am, they tell me it's the combination of your hands, your texture, how well you, how coordinated you are, how hard you play the bass, how hard you don't play the bass, however you look at that point of view. It's those items that make you able to make the bass sound like yours, even though it clearly is not yours.
Is your sound conscious?
Am I aware of it? Absolutely. My job is to make it sound the same every night.
I
This
just wonder
sound that I like.
if it's like the sound of your voice, which you have some control over, but not the timbre so much, and not, I mean, how much of it is physical and how much of it is conscious?
It's physical in that I found a set of strings that make the bass vibrate to its optimum.
I see.
And it's emotionally, and I know the kind of sound I want this bass to be representative of what sounds I hear. A little of each.
So much of the music that we love to hear you play has elements of improvisation, and that requires being in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, can you prepare, or how would you prepare to be in the moment?
Well, no, that's in the moment. It's a pretty general phrase. If you say, how do you prepare to do a concert, which is an in the moment event?
Yes.
You know, if you were to put to me in that format, my response would be, if today is an example of this event, my response to you would be, I made sure my bass was in condition to play before I left home. I made sure I had my tools, like the amp, whatever I need to make the bass respond. I'd make sure that I got to the location of this concert early enough to make sure the sound in the building, as near as I could control it. I'd make sure I have the library, as I'm the band leader, set in my head that I can make this presentation to the guy and say, this is the music for the night. I'd make sure I was dressed comfortably. And I would trust all these elements to fall in place to allow me, free of everything else, to step into the moment.
Much of what you just described is external,
Yeah.
and I'm asking about the internal.
I'm telling you, these events make the internal take place, whatever that is.
So you would just, if all these external things are taken care of, you just go into the zone.
Absolutely.
When you're on stage.
That's correct. Because I'm no longer worried about the set. I'm not worried about the kind of time I'm wearing. I'm not worried about the band being in place. I'm not worried about the building, the sound of the room not being okay. I'm not worried about the bass having issues. It's falling, got a crack. I don't worry about those things anymore because I've already spent this preparation time to allow me to step from the lobby, which is getting the bass to the gig, getting the music, and that to the auditorium when I walk on the stage and I'm in my own space, this air that's called the Ron Carter Quartet, or tonight the Ron Carter Trio. I'm looking to get in that air. And all these things I do outside of this, getting into the air, allow me to be in the air and not worry about anything else.
As a teacher, and I know you've spent decades in the classroom, but also private students. When you're working with younger players, can you teach them to swing?
I think you can show them the elements. Whether they can do it or not is strictly internal, I think. I mean, I've been asked this question before. And the more you try to explain it, the more simple it sounds as if anyone can do it. It's kind of like describing how do you improvise. Once you explain the process, you know, the process makes it sound that, gee, anybody could do that. But the results of anybody can do that are quite different from those who can really do it. You know, and you can't explain that part of improvising. You know.
I mean, there are symphony players who really know their instrument inside and out.
And don't have a clue.
They don't have a clue. How would you help them?
Well, first
have a clue?
I have to see if they have respect for the music and if they learn how to do it, or they're just trying to fool around for their neighbors. Now, did they want it to be a hobby for between movements from the Tchaikovsky Fourth, or doing a John Cage's piece? The guy says improvise, you know. Or do you really want to play that music, the jazz, improvised parts, like I would play it? or you just want to go on weekends to Joe's Pub and the McGillicuddy's Saloon and just play with the guys because you want to see your friends. So you play a couple of courses on the bass and just go home and your hands are sore and that's fine with you. Nobody got hurt but you. So they have to have a complete mindset to put them in the space to really understand what it takes to do what I do. You know?
By the way, do you ever feel like you want to just play with your friends and not a performance or a recording or something formal? Just
they're all
to
my
have fun?
friends. They're all my friends, man.
Huh.
All these people
every
are my
night?
friends. Every night I go to school free because every night they show me something I didn't learn the night before. And I expect today with Russell Malone and Donald Vega, I'll learn something that I didn't know before I walked into this concert, into the stage.
By the way, what is it you like specifically about Donald and Russell?
That they trust me implicitly musically. They don't question my choices.
And you trust them and they trust you.
Absolutely. I'm trusting them more as they understand what I'm trying to get them to do. And if I play that set of alternate changes from 2/5 chords that's not normally there, there's not a clue for them to play freely. There's a clue for them to find out what are these changes going by that I just missed. And if I get them to continue to understand that that's part of my harmonic process, and it's not a license to play freely, they're going to be surprised at what they come up with, because then I have more things for them to worry about. Some more chord choices, and some more alternate views of harmony over here that we can all have fun playing. You know? So once we get into that place every day. You know? But again, that kind of repartee is a good word. Comes with just doing it often every night. You got to play it. You got to play often, every night if it's possible.
And how about in the trio setting? You've been playing with Russell for a long time. Before Donald was Mulgrew Miller.
Yeah.
How do things change when a new element of the trio comes into play?
Well, I think
A new player.
one of the differences between Donald and Mulgrew is Mulgrew's sound is more weighty. It's a heavier sound. I'm trying to avoid saying like another player's name to be a reason to understand Mulgrew's sound specifically. So I'll just say his sound is a much heavier sound physically than Donald Vega. And I expect, though, the more Donald becomes comfortable with the library, because there's some really hard parts to play.
Which are the hardest parts?
All the piano parts.
For every tune?
Every one, that's correct.
How much is actually written out and how much are lead sheets?
If we do a 9-concert program, there are probably 6 physical arrangements and maybe 4 lead sheets, 4 just lead sheets. Yeah.
Because people who come to the concert, they just assume that jazz musicians just sort of make it up as they go along.
Well, I don't mind that view, but you know, it's unfortunate, I guess, or maybe it's fortunate, depending on whose side you're on, that when you come here again, and there's a Schubert leader, German leader sung by someone, or someone singing some Italian arias, I doubt that any of the audience really knows what they're saying in their native tongue. Okay? But people expect the same people, or an equal number of people, to come to a jazz concert and have a really good clue as to what's going on the stage musically. They expect the people in the audience to know that the drummer's playing 3 against 4, or this tune is in the key of F, or this piano player is voicing this voice because the bass player's got perfect pitch. They expect the audience to know this kind of inside music. But the classical orchestra, man, they don't. The classical audience, they just started getting around putting words in the opera in opera houses. Why do you think that was? Okay, they didn't understand the language. They want them to be a part of the process. And clearly the people who are in the operatic scene felt that the more people can literally understand the words, because they're going in front of them like the Times Square things, that they'd be more part of the process of the opera.
But jazz itself has its own language.
Yeah, but the audience is held to a higher standard of knowing that language than the classical audience is. I mean, how many people do you know can go to a concert hall and hear, close their eyes and have the stage change and hear 4 different orchestras playing Beethoven's Fifth, and be required to know who the conductor is, how long the piece is, what's the size of the orchestra, and a view of those 4 different people by their names conducting each different orchestra. But they come to hear Miles Davis Quintet, and they're supposed to know Herbie's last record. Or they want to know, they were supposed to know what kind of car Miles has. Or they're supposed to know what kind of bass I have. Or they have to know, why is this tune formed? What's the form of this tune? I guess what I'm saying to your other question is that the expectation level of audiences is so unfair and is so different that it's discouraging sometimes. If I were in the audience and I would be held accountable for knowing stuff that's got nothing to do with me, first of all. You know? But again, once get back to Donald and Russell, we're starting to play more often together, and we're starting to understand each person's point of view. And our 3 of us' job is to understand when it's time to go here, when it's time to go here, when it's time to go here, and who has the ultimate say when that happens. Right now, that's me.
You always decide when it's time.
Right now, that's
because you pay the checks.
Yeah, well, I'm the only bass player. I'm the only bass player in that band too.
That's right. Yeah, there was an assumption that the bassist was always the timekeeper, but when it's somebody like Ron Carter, you're just as much of a navigator as anyone.
Well, I've always thought that a bass player who had a real good skill level and a good harmonic concept, if he had the desire, he or she could make the band do anything that they wanted the band to do, because they're that much in charge. And I've always felt like that, and I've been in situations where I've had to actually prove I'm in charge. Okay.
For example, give me a...
No.
No, are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Over lunch.
If you pay for it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's worth it. I want to hear that
This is
story.
very expensive. Yeah, it'd be expensive kind of example here.
Yeah.
Well, I've had to actually do that, you know, and it gets musicians, as people are starting to understand as well. Musicians, the bass player is not the guy behind the palm tree. He is the palm tree. He's the shade, he's the light, he's the rain, he's all that stuff, man. In this case, he's a check writer.
Yeah,
as well.
That too. It doesn't hurt. What inspires you outside of music?
I'm inspired by the possibility of looking for a young bassist who I can help get better. That's what I teach privately now. I'm looking for students who I think I can help learn the instrument better, give them a broader view of music with a capital M, and make them aware of sharing music with other people, make them aware of being available for projects that they would not normally consider interesting to them.
So when you give private lessons,
Yes.
how much of it is focused on technique versus process?
It depends on how the lesson goes. I mean, I had a lesson yesterday, and excuse me, it occurred to me that since bass players are now not able to carry their basses on most gigs, that they should have a process that helps them learn what a strange bass feels like when they got to go play it for a gig. So rather than do a playing lesson, I said, okay, put that bass away and we'll take mine out the closet. Now your job is to make this bass sound and feel like yours in 10 minutes. What are you going to do to make that happen? And once they showed me and themselves that they had no process, we spent the next 4 or 5 minutes giving them a process.
And what is your process for dealing with a strange bass?
Taking a scale or 2 scales or 3 scales and seeing if I can play them on this bass in tune. And in this process, finding out what strings are uneven, the sound, whether strings are true or false, what the curvature of the strings, are the strings curvature of the bridge matching the curvature of the fingerboard, how high are the strings away from the fingerboard, what kind of strings are these, what kind of pickups do they have, how many pickups are on the bridge, does the bass get high enough for me to stand up and play. But what are the machines up here? How are they hooked up here? Is there an extension up here? What notes on the bass don't sound okay? What notes sound really great? What notes have no sound at all? I have 10 minutes to make these decisions before the concert starts. So I'm telling these people, okay, this is what we're looking at now. Let's get this going. So the lessons depends on what the needs are for them. I prepared a lesson for all of them. They all have assignments to bring in complete. But the lesson's going toward a specific knowledge that they don't have, like how to make the bass sound like yours in 10 easy minutes. I'll spend time to do that.
Those are things they don't teach you in conservatory.
Well, generally conservatories have never had that worry because the truck comes by, picks up the basses in the trunks, and takes them to the airport.
Yeah,
That's never been a concern of theirs.
Yeah.
You know?
They also don't teach musicians how to build a set of music, how to plan a set.
Well, again, you know, conservatories traditionally have never had that concern with the orchestras, because they got my guy here doing like this.
Yeah.
That's his worry. Our words can't play this part right night in and night out.
But this is something you know a lot about, having been a leader and sideman, is what works when you think about building a set.
Well, that's my job is to plan a story for the night and give it to the guy. So, guys, this is our story. And one of the reasons I don't really play encores is that my story is finished. I never leave anything for after the 888. You know, once I get the 3 dots at the end of the story, man, I'm kind of finished with my story. And my not doing an encore has been misunderstood as not a good way to close an evening. You know, and when I presented with that response for the encore, I explained to them, well, you know, the band and I, we kind of ran out of words. I had a story for my band. They told the stories perfectly. I'm not going to go back and read a paragraph again for you because you want another paragraph about somebody else's book. This is my story. It ends right here. There's 3s at the very bottom. 888. I'm done.
Can you say what your stories are about?
I can, but not right now. And if I do it now, you look for it tonight at the concert. I don't want you I don't want you to come in there with a story in your head that you think is mine. I want you to hear my story when it's over.
I mean,
over this same lunch.
In general, are these stories representational or are they abstract?
Well, they're real.
They're real.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They're your life. They're you.
They're what goes on today. Absolutely.
Do you pay attention to what people say or write about you and your music?
How do you mean pay attention? Do I read it?
Yeah, I mean, does it ever bother you?
I have been. You know, the New York Times has a masthead, all the news that's fit to print, right? And when my band works in New York and we don't get any review in the newspaper, I ask the band if it's okay to express my political view, because I never do this without their permission. I don't want the audience to feel that the band feels like that. The band feels like, if the band feels like that, the band will tell them. But right now, I'm the spokesman for the band. Now, I will make a notice to the audience that I see it by the New York Times today, which costs $2.50 now, that that masthead is still the same. All the news is fit to print. Somehow the New York Times, whoever they are, have felt that this music from this band, these players, is not fit to print. And I object to that result. I resent that possibility, that acknowledgement of our lack of importance. So, yeah, I'm aware of it. I don't agree with it, but that's their point of view. The problem with me not agreeing with it is not that I don't agree with it. It's that I have no format to respond to this criticism. Either it comes in the paper I've already left town because it's 2 days later, or I don't have that kind of format or forum that allows me access to the same amount of media that this terrible review has, negative review has about my music or me. So I'm kind of stuck with that inability to really lay out this reviewer and question what he's based his dislike of me or my music is concerned with.
Do you ever have the chance to talk to reviewers, to critics?
One or two of them who I happen to know personally. I used to know John Wilson very well, who was the late writer of the New York Times. And I've had some contact with those, but those guys, they don't want to be, they're kind of like the guy who gives the Michelin marks at the restaurants. They want to come in and eat your food free and not let you know that they're and write terrible shit about your music, about the food. Critics, they're kind of the same way for me. They want to come into the club free. They want to sit in the front table. They want to take up the best seat in the house. They want to review the band, maybe with a favorable review, and you have no way of responding to them because you don't see them. You don't know who they are.
But does this bother you, or do you just shrug it off?
No, well, I let it go, but I can get fired if I want to. I mean, just the notion that the guy would sneak into a club where I'm playing, expect to eat free and drink free, and walk out with an awful review of the band, which I can't comment to because I don't know he's there, and I don't know who he is. It's kind of like taking advantage of the situation. You know? So yeah, I resent that, you know. And I have been known to, when I found one of those guys who what I call the snake in the grass, who said something that I thought was uncomplimentary about me and or the music, yeah, I called his hand. You know?
What does that mean, to call his hand?
How dare you? What's that based on? Why wouldn't you tell me that live? Why would you feel free to come in and take up a paying customer seat to write a review that's based on you being more important than a review? Your language skills are really not very good. And the editor, whoever edited this paper, he used words that he doesn't know where they belong in the sentence. You know. Well, I'm pretty good at calling hand, you know. But again, you know, if you spend time doing that, you can't play music. So I don't get caught up in that, you know. I like to see what they write because I want to see what their writing skills are. One of my views with my students in schools, because I've taught jazz history classes, I've taught other classes rather than one-on-one based lessons, that someone has to write reviews of this music. And the guys who are writing them now, they can't write forever. For whatever reason, they pass away, they lose interest, the money's not big enough, whatever. And so I hope that some of the students who I've had contact with will at some point find that either they no longer want to play anymore, or have lost interest, or it's not emotional enough for them. They can turn into writing, go to journalism school, man. Figure out how to write. I'm not sure jazz writers do that. Go to journalism school to learn how to write correctly. You know, they haven't been that. They don't. But somebody's got to catalog this music too. Somebody's got to be the documentarian, the historian of this music. And I would be much more comfortable to know that a person who cared about the music enough to study in high school or college, who played decently enough to understand some of the issues involved in nightclubs and terrible settings where people expect a high-level performance with these handicaps. I'd be much more pleased to know that this person with this kind of skill level and background would be the person who's writing a credible or non-credible review based on these experiences he's had as a musician, rather than whoever the critics are who write these days.
So I know we're winding down here. There's so much I want to ask you. Let's call this part one of our conversation.
Okay.
But let me conclude this part by asking, as a bassist, as a composer, as an educator, but really as a man, how do you measure success?
There are a lot of ways to do that, I think. And the more diverse your life is, the more avenues you have for kind of coming up with that kind of answer to that question. One way I can measure my success is by the number of students I have who are playing the music, not just playing bass, not just playing jazz gigs, but they're involved in the music industry. Everything from subbing to Broadway shows to doing the open mic things where they have singers come up and sing all night, to do a gig at a little coffee shop down the street, you know, to a major name gig at a major nightclub in New York, I mean, these bass players, man, they're playing the music. And I like to think I'm a small part of showing them the instrument well enough that they could translate these physical skills we've worked on for all these hard lessons into not only just playing wonderful bass, but playing music that requires wonderful bass, whatever kind of music that happens to be.
Ron Carter, continued success to you.
Thank you. Starting tonight at 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.